We now have a law passed, Congress passed it, gave it to the President. The President signed it on January 1st. The National Defense Authorization Act. Horrible. This enables and gives the President literal power, clear power that he can arrest any American citizen by the military. So there's no more posse comitatus. You don't have to be charged. You don't get a trial. And one senator said, and if they ask for a lawyer, tell them they don't get one. And people say, well, they haven't touched me or my neighbor, but precedent is very important, and to codify these kind of things, very, very dangerous. And I think the American people haven't heard about that. The crowds like this, you have heard about it, and I think that is great that you're aware of it, but we still have a long way to go to repeal it, and quite frankly, I don't see where the other candidates would do a thing about it because they don't even talk about it. But I can guarantee you a few things. If I am to be your president, I will not go to war ever without a declared war outright.
Okay, well, we'll talk a bit about poll numbers. In the last couple of days, the primaries haven't finished particularly high, but why come to Illinois and talk to students after the last couple of minutes?
Because they were anxious for me to come, because the crowds turn out. They're very enthusiastic, and they're the future of America, and they get me enthused, and they're enthused, and that's a pretty good poll for me.
Dr. Paul, tonight you said that the other candidates on your side are wanting to start more wars, but Speaker Gingrich and actually even Santorum have sort of started to come over to your side on Afghanistan, saying we need to reconsider our commitment there. How do you respond to that?
It's about time, but they're what we call chicken hawks, and they talk a lot, they push the wars, they themselves haven't gone, and they don't serve, and yet they push the, excuse me. I gave that speech for an hour and didn't do that. And they promote the wars. Sure, the politics has changed, and that's great. We're changing people's mind. The American people are sick and tired of it. But like I mentioned in my speech, I talked for 5 years trying to prevent the war in Iraq. So if they want to come on board now, fine and dandy. That means we're winning the fight.
Congressman, Illinois suffered some tornadoes, and FEMA recently has decided not to provide aid. What are your thoughts on that? You've been hit with this question before, but for Illinoisans, can you speak to that topic?
Well, it's a mixed deal. FEMA is one of the most inefficient organizations around. I live on the Gulf Coast. We put up with hurricanes, and FEMA gets in the way. But they come and look at what they did with Katrina. They messed up that. They brought trailers in. They weren't FEMA approved, and they just rotted away. And millions of dollars wasted. But, under the circumstances, they take our money, and they're supposed to have this organization. I think they should try to do their job better. But I won't vote for more money for a program like that. But I will vote to cut like $10 billion from overseas, put $5 billion against the deficit, and put $5 billion into our infrastructure, or something we had promised the people and said this program was in place, because people in flood insurance, FEMA flood insurance, they've already been enticed to go into it. So I would try my best to salvage it and make it work, but I won't add money because the deficit is our real threat to our security. So therefore I would have to cut the spending, and it's the overseas spending I'd cut.
Congressman, we got the NATO summits coming up in May in Chicago. You've been adamant against NATO. You've been even called for us pulling out of NATO. What are your thoughts on NATO, and with Petraeus speaking that now that they take orders from international powers like NATO, the UN, your thoughts on how NATO has just grown out of control?
Oh, it's absolutely out of control. The Cold War's over. What if you wanted to argue the case that it was there to stop the Soviets? The Soviets no longer exist. There's no real excuse. They have to go around and look for an excuse, and we lose sovereignty. I mean, Obama used the NATO for going into Libya. So no, I think that's wrong. I think it's unconstitutional. I think it's bad. I just think that Robert Taft was right. He said, don't even get in NATO. Even back when there was a Soviet concern, he thought it would lead to problems like this.
Congressman, how do you plan to bring home our troops?
By ship. Just send the ship. They said, how soon? As soon as I can get the ships there. The president is the commander-in-chief. We just marched in there without proper authority. We can just bring them home. And the immediate reaction to that would be people would become less confrontational in the Middle East because they would know we're not going to invade another country. At the same time, it would give a real boost to the economy because as the troops came back, they'd be spending that money here. I think it would give a boost to the dollar and a boost to the economy.
What do you say about the president's abusing the War Powers Act with Libya, with the conflict there?
Well, he's like so many other presidents, going to war unconstitutionally and against the War Power Resolution. He shouldn't do it, but Congress are the wimps. They should just deny funding for it. And Congress should stand up to him. The people should stand up to Congress and tell the Congress what they ought to do. Or they need to get another president also to give them some protection, a president that won't go to war under those circumstances.
As someone who's staked his campaign on liberty and freedom, do you believe that two gay people should have the legal right to marry?
People have a right to do anything they want as long as they don't hurt other people, as long as it's voluntary.
Do you believe that the same anti-discrimination protections that are granted to race, religion, and gender should be extended to sexual orientation?
Well, yeah. I mean, if you're allowed to pick your religion, you're allowed to pick your sexual preferences. My preference on that whole issue is get the government out of it. Why do you have to have a license to be married? And we wouldn't have these silly arguments, who's married and who isn't. Everybody gets to make up their own decision. Why wouldn't that solve the problem?
Seeing Central Illinois turnout tonight, just describe, how that feels to see these crowds here.
Well, I was a bit ecstatic, and the crowd was ecstatic. We had over 5,000 people, and I was told we had friends here, there'd be enthusiasm. But it was beyond my expectations because we've had 3,000 and 4,000 people come out on college campuses. But this may well be a record for a college campus, at least in the last year. It's been a record. I was very, very pleased. And I think it's mutual. The young people usually say I energize them, but you can tell that they always obviously energize me as well. I think we have one more.
Any words for students at the university about student paper?
Any what?
Any words for students voting?
My message in the speech was people should study, learn about freedom, foreign policy, and economics, and get involved. There's a job. Become informed, and you'll have a job either running for office or participating or teaching or becoming a journalist. Those kind of things. Everybody has to make up their own mind what they should do. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Some people get discouraged because they say, well, you're not getting 51% of the vote, 51% you have to have it, but it isn't true. What you need is an irate, tireless minority willing to start brush fires in the minds of men. And there are some days like today that I get more optimistic. Instead of a brush fire, this looks like a forest fire. It's great. I've always resented it when they say that, oh, I'm a candidate, I like what you're saying, but you're about 200 years too late. Well, you want to go back to the 19th century. But that is wrong. That is wrong. Freedom is a new idea. It's only been tried briefly at different periods of time. We've had a magnificent trial. It worked very well, and we have rejected it. When they talk about going back to the old age and the old days, that's what they're doing. They're going back to tyranny. Everything today is a movement toward tyranny and control. That is old-fashioned. It's been proven to be wrong, and we have to reject it. Ideas do have consequences, and the good ideas have good consequences. Bad ideas have bad consequences. I think the ideas of liberty is a good idea, and it will have good consequence if we do our work and our efforts and participate one way or the other. People ask me constantly, what should I do? You convince me, you're right, tell me what I'm supposed to do. I said, do what you want to do. You do what you have to do. Some people, but the most important thing that we do is understand the issues, understand why non-intervention overseas is good for us and good for them, good for everybody, good for the world, and good for the cause of peace. We need to be able to defend that. We need to understand why personal liberty means that, yes, we have to be tolerant of people even when they make their mistakes and do things that you don't approve of. And you also have to have a firm understanding and be able to defend why free markets provide greater prosperity than interventionism and socialism and welfare and inflationism. That is not the road to prosperity. There's still a fair amount of fear in this country that if you have too much freedom, that it won't work. I don't think so. I guess we'll never have a perfectly free society, but we have a shortage of freedom, and we need to substitute that fear with more freedom and understanding. I've had members of Congress sitting beside them when they're voting, and they're voting for something to take more control over your life. And I say, why are you doing that? And he literally said to me, well, the people are too dumb. The people are too stupid. And that attitude prevails on both sides of the political spectrum. You can't take care of your own personal life, and you can't take care of your own economic life. But when you see the results of what a free society can bring, and this to me is the road, the best chance we have for peace and prosperity. That should be our goal. The other personal goal that I think we should consider, and that is seeking excellence and seeking virtue in a personal way. Nobody can impose excellence on us. Nobody can impose virtue on us. But the governments are always trying to do this. They're trying to say, well, you have to do this and this and this, and then we'll become a virtuous country, even to the point of, spreading ourselves with missiles and bombs. But if the government assumes that role, and assumes this role that they can protect us from ourselves, believe me, there will be no liberty. But today, this idea of liberty is alive and well and growing by leaps and bounds. So though we have great problems, I finish with a bit of optimism, because there's a large number of people. The young people of this country have had enough of what they're seeing coming, and they want to change it. They like the ideas of liberty. They're principled. They like the Constitution. They don't like war. And there is a large segment of other people that are joining. The independents and a lot of Democrats now are looking at this and say, this makes sense. It's common sense. This will bring people together, this whole philosophy of liberty. So I am convinced that if we understand the principles of liberty, where that liberty comes from, it comes from our Creator, it doesn't come from our government. If we understand that, I am convinced that we can return to the republic of old and once again have peace and prosperity in America. Thank you very much.